Let's call the February 27th board meeting to order. First on the agenda is the pledge, tonight led by Dr. Andrea Anthony.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Dr. Anthony. Would everybody please join us in a moment of silence? Okay, thank you. All right, board, have a motion on the approval of the agenda.
Move we approve, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Second.
Second.
Thank y'all. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, approval of the consent agenda.
Move to approve.
Thank you. Have a second.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. All right, visitors. First tonight would be Mr. Michael Harris. State your name and address for.
All right. Michael Harris. We live at 5235 Sledge Road, Christiana, across the street from the new Plainview project. I have been okay with the school coming in across the street with the property that y'all purchased for the schools. I've talked with Mr. Trey Lee several times. I put a call into him last Thursday. I'm still waiting for a return phone call. I know he's here this evening. We probably could have handled this if he'd have called me. You all paid $18,000. My understanding, you paid $18,500 an acre for ground across the street from me. They're widening the road. I have 30 acres, about a half a mile road frontage in front of y'all's property. We got an appraisal from the county roads department that says my property is worth $4,000 an acre. Now, if y'all paid $18,500 an acre and mine across the street's only worth $4,000, where is the issue? What's the problem? Why am I not being treated fairly for the acreage that they're taking from me? That is my question to this board.
To be honest with you, that would have to go through the road department. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. I have spoken numerous times with Mr. Harris, and I apologize. I've called you back every time I got a message, and I did not get a message. I'm not saying you didn't leave it, but I didn't get it. So to answer your question is we don't do the appraisal for the highway department. That's something that's done through them. And any questions on the appraisal would have to go through the highway department and their lawyer.
Okay, was the land that you all paid so high for, is there an appraisal for that?
Yes, sir, there is.
Is there a way I can get a copy of that?
You go, Open Records Act, you just make an application with Ms. Page, and I'll be glad to get it for you.
Does anybody have an explanation as to why I'm valued so little compared to what you paid across the street?
No, sir, we don't have anything to do with that.
Well, this is directed to you, Mr. Trey. Didn't you assure me that anything that was going to take place out there was taking place on your side of the road?
All turning lanes and all road improvements are taking place on our side of the road.
Then why does the county roads department want almost an acre of my ground?
Can't answer that.
So you've been my go-to person for this whole thing, and I've told you all along that I'm not in opposition of it. However, I want some transparency and some truth. Whatever you tell me, I'm believing.
Yes, sir.
And
I'm
you tell
telling
me that everything is coming from your side of the road, but now it's not.
We don't do the highway design. I told the highway department, and our engineers have worked with their engineers, that anything needed for widening can be taken off our side, turning lanes and everything. That's what we instructed them, and to my knowledge, that's what they've done.
Well, I got a certified letter with a packet saying they're taking .87 acres of my ground, and which also kicks me out of Greenbelt.
Well, then what I would request is a meeting with Mr. Greg Brooks of the Highway Department.
I've got one scheduled for Monday,
If you'll let me know, I'll be glad to attend.
okay? As soon as he lets me know what time.
Okay. Let me know, and I'll be glad to attend.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
All right. Ms. Hall?
Hi. My name is Sienna Hall. Do you need my address? I've never done this before. 111 Ridge Park Court. I'm here on behalf of Tennessee Education Association. I'm a high school teacher at Blackman and an executive board member of Rutherford Education Association. And TEA hopes you will adopt this resolution on high-stakes testing. Whereas after years of repeated implementation failures and missteps by multiple vendors, we believe educator and public trust in TN Ready has fallen to irretrievably low levels. And whereas thousands of 2018 irregularities and interruptions in test administration, including students returning to partially completed tests with the ability to change answers that had already been submitted, render the data unusable. And whereas the Tennessee General Assembly passed legislation in 2018 to hold teachers, students, administrators, and schools harmless based on flawed TN-ready data. And whereas TVAS is based on a 3-year model, and there has not yet been 3 years of uncompromised data since the inception of TN-ready, yet the state still issues TVAS scores to teachers and schools. And whereas, while the General Assembly passed testing transparency legislation requiring the state to publish a portion of actual TN-ready questions and answers to allow teachers to compare what they are told to teach with what is on the standardized test, the state has yet to publish sufficient questions, leaving teachers and parents in the dark and increasing mistrust of the testing system. Now, therefore, be it resolved, we respectfully ask the State and General Assembly to pause the use of TN-ready data in any action for students, teachers, and schools for the foreseeable future until the Department of Education is able to work collaboratively with school systems and educators to address the myriad challenges of TN-ready and its proper role in Tennessee public education. I have a copy of the resolution for each of you.
Thank you. Here. Oh,
Sienna. Ms. Hall, I'd like to address your concerns, and I agree with a lot of what you said there, much of what you said. One of the things, when we look at our TN-ready testing, there are 2 tests that we have to take by federal law, and that's your ELA and math, and that's what had occurred. The General Assembly can, on our state testing, the ones that are not required by ESSA, can do that. But by federal law, we must take those tests in ELA and math.
I think a lot of what the resolution is asking is we can take them, but the fact that they're still counting towards us and towards the students and towards our school scores when we don't have a solid testing system, that's what a lot of this is addressing.
And one of the, also part of ESSA states that everyone has to get a grade. In other words, that's not something, the only thing that the General Assembly added to that was a letter grade. They added, they included that, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Sullivan, but all the other part, that's something that the federal, holds the keys to those kind of things.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
thank you. All right. Geneva Cook?
My name is Geneva Cook, 4756 Forestman Court in Murfreesboro. I'm a teacher at Blackman High School and vice president of Rutherford Education Association. But this evening I'm here on behalf of TEA to ask the Rutherford County School Board to join TEA in advocating for Tennessee teaching salaries to lead the Southeast and for K-12 funding to be at or better than the regional average.
In pursuit of these mutual goals, we ask support of the Rally for Our Schools for the Funding We Deserve, Monday, March 16th at noon on the Legislative Plaza in Nashville. Tennessee is 45th in the nation in K-12 funding per student. The key reason for this status is state government contributes less of a percentage of K-12 funding than neighboring states. The state can and should do more in public school funding. To reach the Southeast average for funding per pupil requires $1.2 billion in additional K-12 funding. The state has the revenue to meet this goal without raising taxes. The state general fund has seen surpluses every fiscal year since 2015, on average $600 million more in tax collections than budgeted. Revenue has been so strong that unrestricted state cash reserves has increased to $6.7 billion in 2019. A lack of state K-12 investment means many state mandates and school needs are unfunded by the state, putting more of a burden on local governments who often do not have the capacity to raise revenue and dissipating any state funding increase for teacher salaries and benefits. Low state K-12 investment negatively impacts an LEA's ability to recruit and retain qualified teachers. Tennessee teacher salaries have not kept up with inflation, with average teacher salaries 2.6% less in value since 2009. Low salaries exacerbate a growing teacher shortage, with 1 in 3 teachers wanting to leave the profession because of low pay and difficult teaching conditions. There is a 9% decline in the number of teacher candidates completing Tennessee training programs. It is critical for the state to increase funds for teacher salaries and to increase the number of state-funded teaching units in the BEP. To express our desire for this funding, we ask your support for the Rally for Our Schools on March 16th. A third of the counties in Tennessee are on spring break. However, we in Rutherford are not. We do have some teachers who are taking a personal day to attend, and we'll do our best to let those legislators know what we need. As you speak to our legislators on a regular basis, please let them know how important it is that the state properly fund all Tennessee schools so that our students have a better chance of being successful. We invite all of you to join us and anyone in the community who wants to attend March 16th at noon on Legislative Plaza. You can text RALLY to 84693 or register online at teateachers.org. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't think you'll find anybody on this board who will disagree with you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Laura Schlesinger.
Laura Schlesinger, President of the Rutherford Education Association. Finally, we hope you will also adopt and sign TEA's resolution for funding. Whereas Tennessee schools get top 10 results with bottom 10 funding, leading the South in graduation rates and statewide ACT scores, yet falls behind all neighboring states in funding per student except for Mississippi. And whereas Tennessee ranks 45th in investment per student as a result of state funding levels far below neighboring states such as Alabama, Kentucky, and Arkansas, and whereas Tennessee ranks in the middle of southern states for teacher salary but still is in the bottom third nationally. Competitive salaries are important in a time when attracting and retaining teachers is increasingly difficult. And whereas the lack of state education funding has a negative impact on teaching and learning and meeting the needs of Tennessee students, and whereas most southeastern states fund K-12 education primarily through state investment, while Tennessee pays less than 50% of the funding required to run our public schools, and whereas while the Governor and General Assembly have made significant increases in K-12 funding, our public schools continue to lack the resources needed for students to succeed, with more than half of Tennessee schools lacking full-time positions such as librarians, art or music teachers, reading or math specialists, counselors, or nurses. Now, therefore, be it resolved, we are respectfully ask the Governor and General Assembly to increase funding for public education to get Tennessee to the Southeast average of per-student investment and lift Tennessee out of the bottom 10 in public school funding. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll agree with that also. In fact, we fight that every year. Most of the time, we don't win up there, but we ask. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Spurlock, going to do a little recognition.
Absolutely. We want to recognize, first of all, we'll start with the Stewart's Creek JV Cheer Team National Champions and the Stewart's Creek High School Varsity Cheer Team World Division and Nations Cup winners, along with the coach, Alana Smith. If they would come on up and be recognized. Yeah.
Well, this isn't going to work, is it?
They need to go around there.
Just line up down through here.
Okay, you guys come around this way. Come on in.
Somebody might want to take a picture.
That's right. Congratulations.
Go ahead.
Good job.
Come close, friends. While they're moving around, I would love to just have the opportunity to say a few words. I first want to thank the school board for recognizing our cheer program. We truly appreciate that. We would also like to say thank you to our principal, Dr. Clark Harrell, our athletic director, Miss Jenny Smith, and the rest of our school and administration for the support of our cheer program. We'd also like to thank our parents. The parents have sacrificed their time to get our kids to practice. They pay a lot of money for them to even do this sport, which is amazing in itself. And just being there and being supportive. I'd like to thank my husband and my children who have also been very supportive. And my mom and dad, they would want me to say that as well. But as I sit here with these 52 athletes, I am reminded of a quote from Coach Nick Saban. And he said, "It is not human nature." Sorry, I'm getting emotional. It is not human nature to be great. It is human nature to survive, to just get by. In order to be great, it takes sacrifice and dedication and passion and effort. And today, you guys are looking at a group of people, cheerleaders, coaches, that decided this year they wanted to be great. And they put the time and effort and passion and sacrifice and dedication into it, and they came out successful. So you are looking at the 2019 JV Co-Ed Tennessee Extreme Regional Champion, the TSSAA 2019 JV Co-Ed State Champions and Medium Co-Ed Varsity Champions, the 2020 JV Co-Ed National Champions. They are literally the best JV Co-Ed team in the nation, which is unbelievable, and they're right here from Smyrna, Tennessee. We also have the 2020 Medium Co-Ed World School Champions, the 2020 JV Co-Ed World School Champions, and the 2020 Nation Cup recipient, which means they scored the highest out of all of the co-ed teams across the nation and some teams in the world. I'm proud. I thank God every day that I get the opportunity to be involved with these amazing student athletes in the school of Stewart's Creek High School, and the parents and the support is just unbelievable. And I'm truly honored to have Coach Kelly here. We have awesome coaches. And I want to thank you guys for the school board for even taking the time to recognize us. We truly appreciate it.
No, Mr. Spurlock, we might be 45th in funding, but we've been number one with
That's
cheer
right.
teams for
Absolutely.
a number of years. in Rutherford
Got some
County.
good ones. Real good one.
We're going to lose our crowd.
All right.
Let's let them get out and get a little quieter.
That's a lot of kids right there.
It is. All right, let's move on.
All right, next recognition, Mr. David Cowan. He's been selected to represent Middle Tennessee and Rutherford County through the Tennessee Department of Education's Aspiring Assistant Principal Network. Mr. Cowan, a teacher at Rocky Fork Middle School. I think that guy right there hired you, right?
Just real quick, wanted to kind of tell you about this program. So the state of Tennessee launched a Tennessee Aspiring Assistant Principal Network. So this was for anyone that could achieve a master's that does not already have one in administration. With MTSU so local, we have a lot of our aspiring administrators who already have a degree in administration. And so what we chose the approach was to look at some of our educators who were highly effective at their schools and we're also highly effective leaders in our county. And we've actually submitted 3. Mr. Cowan's the only one we've heard officially back from, so I hope to come back with 2 more good news. And so what they are going to be selected to do is they receive a free master's degree in administration from Tennessee State University. And then our obligation as a school district is they are still licensed teachers in their building and they have to serve as an assistant principal for at least 1 period a day. So it's almost another generation of leaders. So I applaud. I had the privilege of working with Mr. Cowan. He is what we like to call a unicorn. He is a football coach, but also a high school physics and chemistry certified teacher, and his classroom obligations outweigh what he does on the athletic field, and that's the best compliment I can give him. So
Let me add on to that, Mr. Cowan. I've been following you on Twitter, and you do a lot of great things in your classroom. As being a former science teacher, I'm very impressed with you. But I'll tell you the story. Every time I come down to Rocky Fork Middle, you're on, either you're doing a PLC, or you're doing some things, but I want to tell you, I am very impressed. We're very excited about this, and you had to put up with this guy for a year or so, but that's okay.
Probably the other way around. I just want to say, first of all, thank you guys for this opportunity. I also want to thank God for this opportunity. I wouldn't be here without him. I also want to thank my mother. She wasn't able to make it today, but I'm thankful for everything she instilled in me to be able to have moments like this in my life. I also want to thank my support system, my beautiful family, and my extended family around the room. Like Dr. Sullivan told you guys, it's a great opportunity, and when he spoke to me about it, I didn't know anything about it, so I'm just privileged to have this opportunity, and thank you guys for seeing something in me so I can have it. Once again, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I don't know whether we ought to be taking chemistry and science teachers.
This guy's good now. That's the bad part about it.
Who was the guy that selected that?
Sorry. And I do want to say he will be actually serving at Rockville High School next year. So that's where he'll be serving next year as a teacher and 1 period assistant principal. So.
Thank
Good
you.
luck. All right, let's move on to building.
All right, there was the building program. There was one slight issue from the previous night. Was the I think it was a little over 110. Was it 100 and how much? 110,000.
110 on the funded portion.
On the funded
with
portion. We just kind of missed that a little bit.
just a little bit on the.
I know I went over to Health and Ed after we left the other night and caught Mr. Lee in the middle of it, and he said, well, the good news is it's a little bit lower than it was. It's off a little bit, but there's been a mistake. And the one commissioner said, yeah, I was looking at that, and it was a lot better than that $500 million that y'all brought forth a few years ago. But Mr. Lee, is there anything else you want to go over here that you haven't already touched upon?
No, sir, I think we've got everything in the order that we discussed Tuesday night, and we do have the numbers at the bottom corrected. So we would be looking for the board's comments and something that we could possibly get voted on that we can go to Health and Ed with at their next meeting.
Okay. All right. Motion to approve the building program plan dated August the 2020 through the 2026 as presented.
Have a motion?
You want to have some discussion on
I got some discussion, so whatever you want to do.
Okay, well, let's get the motion in a second, then we'll do the, have a motion?
that? Move to approve.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. Mr. Hodge?
I think Tuesday night, Mr. Young, I think, brought it up about since we're not going to be able to, not in the process of, got a school going right now, possibly moving up the Roy Waldron addition from 21, 22 up to next year. Looks like it, would that cost be around $11 million, Mr. Lee?
It would be total funded with FF&E would be 15,825.
Okay.
Total about 63 to 64 million for all three projects? Or 73?
It would be 85 less what's already been funded.
Okay, I think we what would already
Right,
been
okay.
funded was 58 million. So if we added 15 more to that, that would be 73 million.
Yes, sir.
You think that's doable, or?
As far as our staff, we can make that happen. Roy Waldron is already into the check set stage. In about 6 to 8 weeks, we can have a completed set of drawings ready to go out for bid. So our timeline is, yes, sir, we can take care of it.
What about the next year, 22, 23, where you got that 840-96 elementary school, moving it up where Roy Waldron was?
That's up to you all. We can make that happen too. That would be an elementary and a middle at the same time. We've done 2 middles, we've done a high and a middle, so we can handle whatever y'all would like to push forward.
So at this point, it's a question of funding?
At this point, next year would be fun. Once y'all vote on it, then we'll take it to Health and Ed for funding. What we have for the following year is basically a plan, and then we would revisit it again this time next year to make sure that that's still based on growth, based on what we see, that that's what you guys would like to move forward with, and we would be asking for funding for that next year. So basically if I'm understanding Mr. Hodge correctly, we would be asking for the elementary at Tan Oaks, the Laverne Middle Ed addition, and the Roy Waldron addition. Going to Health and Ed and asking for funding for those 3 projects.
I guess I'm going back to the portable issue. What plans do you have for portables?
We have 3 portables that are coming available this year. They're going to Rockville Middle, and after that, we have nothing else available.
We don't have anything down the road.
We would not have anything available until Tan Oaks is opened. Once it's opened, then we would have the schools that have portables presently, so there would not be anything for 20 and 21, but they would become available for 21 and 22.
One of the problems, Mr. Hodge, is as we rezoned some of our high schools with Rockvale and Riverdale and Oakland, when we do the dual enrollment, we're increasing the number of classes, but the enrollment staying the same. That's the reason why we're having, now, quite frankly, we may have to revisit that. And I don't think anyone wants to be rotating in and out of a room, but when you got a class 1 to 15 and you're using a room and you're taking up portables, that may come to a point, I'm just speaking on, if we go to request 3 projects for the next coming fiscal year, that's $73 million, okay? Now, help me out here, and you probably would know, Mr. Lee, how many times have we gone with a project back to back? In other words, we got 3 projects. If we were funded for 2021, 2022, we'd have 3 projects totaling somewhere around $73 million.
Yes, sir.
So, and then we would want to come back and Mr. Hodge, let me see if I'm correct on this. You adding another school there, moving the elementary school at 840 and 96?
Yeah, 22, 23 up.
Yeah, so we talk about another, what, 38 million?
Well,
40?
For the following year,
An elementary.
Construction would be 40 million.
Okay, 40 million close. Okay. Gotcha. But I agree with Mr. Hodge. We should be looking at that, but we also have to have a backup plan.
Yes, sir.
The funding, and I go back to the portable thing. We know that we reduced the population of Oakland High School from 2,300 down to about a little over 1,900. We know we reduced the population of Riverdale High School from 2,100 down to 1,900 something. And yet we didn't recapture many of those portables that we probably could. But and I get it, because here, and I'm not saying that Mr. Marshall or Mr. Nance are not using them. What I'm saying is when they add more, and they need to be adding this, when they add more of these post-secondary opportunities like dual enrollment and things of that nature, they tend to, your class size tends to be smaller, 1 to 15 perhaps, and what that does is that kind of, you use those rooms. So we may have to look at, and no one likes this, but we may have to look at for at least a year of, rotating out, giving up your room. And I know, and for Mr. Marshall, I've been there too. It's not good, but we have to have a backup plan, I think, in order to actually get some of these portables that we currently have that are being used. We didn't lose that many. Not quite. Quite frankly, we didn't recapture that many.
Right, if you don't mind, Mr. Sprock, I've got the portable request. The principals had to fill out a portable request that was due last Friday. So elementary school, we had 3 classroom requests. For middle school, we had 21 classroom requests. And then high school had 12 for a total of 36 classroom requests.
That's what we're doing. That's what I'm saying. We're not at, our enrollment is not, we're not, for these 2 high schools to go to 23, almost 22 and 2,300, we're not going back. That enrollment's not increasing that much. It's the offerings, it's the classes, it's being spread out. So, if we need to get, I don't know, maybe we need to get the principals together, but we got to come up with a solution because, I'm not adverse to going and requesting this, but we're keep in mind, 75 million, then next year 40 million. I'm just saying that you've been in those meetings, Mr. Lee.
That's what I'm saying. We'll carry whatever the board asks, and I'm not being argumentative. It's kind of what we think we can possibly receive. Now, I work for you folks.
Yeah, we're going to bring it forward. What I'm saying is, as you as the engineering construction guy and me as the director of school, we've got to have a backup plan.
Don't disagree.
So what I would suggest that we do is once we get, this approved, that you and I and some of the principals sit down and go through it. Some of them that had their population reduced but still have a lot of portables, sit down and work out. I don't want to take their portables away from them, but maybe we could take one, maybe we could take one here, and you see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So that, just in case. I'm not saying that we won't get it funded, but I think we have to have another plan.
Yes, sir.
Okay?
Mr. Chairman, I have a question. And
Sure.
I'm a little bit confused, and I'm sure there's a reason, but if we have such a need in middle school and we have 21 portables being requested, why are we waiting until 21, 22 to build a middle school and we're building an elementary school? Is there no possible way to move that forward?
We don't have any.
We don't have the land where we need the school.
Yeah.
We don't have the land on Highway 96 yet. That's where the middle school needs to be built.
And Tan Oaks isn't going to have a middle school, or
It will have a middle school, but we don't have a need on that side of the county.
Currently.
You follow what I'm saying?
I understand.
We couldn't rezone Blackman to Tan Oaks.
Got it.
We can't shift enough to get the kids around. Where the need is in middle school is between Rockville, Blackman, and Stewart's Creek. And that's where we've been looking at the property, somewhere out on 96.
Now Stewart's Creek Middle doesn't need a portable. I think you're talking Stewart's Creek Elementary. Yeah.
Yes, I'm
Okay,
just
so
saying their growth is coming, that's what the new school was.
Mr. Sullivan, do you have those broken down by schools, the middle schools?
You have the portable request?
The portable request, yes.
Yes, I can. You've got, let me just a second. Siegel Middle, thank goodness, did not ask for any. Christiana Middle, because they have quite a few over there. Christiana Middle asked for 0. Rockville Middle asked for 6, which is 3 double-wide portables, and that's where the 3 from
Rock Springs Elementary are
already being
going.
allocated to.
Let me ask you, Mr. Lee, and I'll come back to you, Mr. Sullivan. Do we have space for 3 double wides at Rockville Middle currently?
We've worked it out.
We
Yes,
have?
sir. Yes, sir.
All right, go ahead.
Oakland Middle was 0 with their annex. Blackman Middle requested 2. Stewart's Creek Middle requested 0 at this time. Stewart's Creek Middle was 0. Rock Springs Middle was 1. Laverne Middle School was 2. Central Magnet requested 2 as well, so that they can look at adding some programming.
Let's go back to Rock Springs Middle. If I'm not mistaken, their enrollment is lower than it was in 2018, 2019 this year.
It is, but it's rising.
Yeah, I understand that. Until we see, until we can see some hard and fast numbers, I think we will have to revisit those things.
Yeah, I agree. These are ones that just the principal.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I was there. I know how this works. I mean, a lot of times you expect, and it doesn't always happen that way. Okay. Any other middle schools?
Yes, sir.
But like I said, I just think we need to have backup plans. And I think you and I and the principals can come up with that plan.
And I agree with the backup plan. I mean, that's just smart business to have a backup plan. But at the same time, we know our growth. We're adding 1,000 students a year, at least. And with that, we should be building a school every year. And we're not building a school to open up this year. So we're one school behind. So that's the reason we need to start looking at how we can move things up to get back on track. The portables, with 36 being requested now, we got another 30 that needs to be replaced. They're deemed unfit, really. So is that a total of 68 portables we really need?
Dr. Sullivan and I have not had the opportunity to completely review his request, but I'd say that in that neighborhood, yes, sir.
I'd just rather see us build permanent structure more than invest in the portables if we can do that. And I just think it'd be a wise decision on our funding body to support it.
And one of the things that we are doing, and Dr. Sullivan has been involved in this, we're looking at, and this is something that the commission has requested for us to do, is to look at multi-track, and we're looking at in the Blackman area as far in the elementary. Am I correct in that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, there's a lot of stuff that goes to it. It sounds like it's a cost saving. However, when you start And that's some things that Dr. Sullivan we were looking at, but we know the operational cost goes up. Sometimes that's a sticker shock effect. Perhaps maybe look at it long range, it may balance out, but I'm not sure about that if you continue to bring growth in. And it's a nightmare. Rezoning is a nightmare. No one loves a rezone, but let me tell you, multi-track is like rezoning on some kind of amphetamines. I mean, it's ridiculous because you run into parents who have kids that are in the middle school and one in the elementary school, or they may have one in high school, middle school, and elementary school, and they're on a different track. So it's a difficult thing. But however, we are bringing the commissioners on. We got a couple of commissioners who are going to be on this committee, correct?
Correct. Yes, sir. We're meeting.
So we'll spread the love with them, right? That's right. Good.
Mr. Lee, what does you told us last week, and I didn't write it down, what does a portable cost us? To purchase it?
To purchase, if it's a single, they're about $40,000. If it's a double, they're about $60,000. Purchasing is getting the latest numbers, and we've got to call in to the people that have the Tennessee bid to get with us because their sizes that they have on bid don't match our sizes. So we're trying to figure out what that is, but in a range, it's somewhere between 40 and 60 between a single and a double.
And what does it cost to set one up?
Average is about $8,000.
So in addition to the price?
Yes, ma'am. That's what it costs to set it up, and then we would have hooking up the electrical, hooking up the fire alarm, hooking up intercom, building ramps.
I'm going to ask this question here because it was asked of me, okay? So don't take it that I'm asking it for myself.
That's fine.
Why do we not reclaim that wood when we tear the ramps down and you reuse those?
Most of the ramps, now I'm not going to say all, the vast majority of them, by the time that by the portable is moved, they've deteriorated. The lumber that, and Mr. Hodge can speak to this, the treated lumber that we bought 20 years ago lasted 20 years. The treated lumber we buy today, 6 to 8 years if you're lucky. We began last year looking at some of our surrounding counties use aluminum ramps, but we can build wood ramps twice before we buy the aluminum ramp. So based on today, we're electing to stay with the wood at this time.
Good answer.
So if we bought, say, 70 portables, we'd be spending almost $5 million plus $56,000 to set them up. Does that sound correct?
I'm going to trust your math, but yes, sir, that's pretty close.
Well, I went with a 60.
Yes, sir. That would be an average, yes, sir.
It would be 4.2, actually. By the time you add everything else in, you're pushing 4.5. So.
Yes, sir.
Personally, I'd rather see us build classrooms.
Mr. Chairman, I have a couple of questions.
Okay.
And I don't mean to get in the way of what Mr. Hodge was talking about, but kind of a little bit differently on the whole subject of portables. I know you spoke Tuesday night. I think that we have 10 portables right now at Laverne Middle. Was that right?
Yes,
Did I
ma'am.
remember that correctly? Okay. And we're getting ready to do this Laverne Middle edition. And I didn't think to ask this the other night. Well, I thought about it too late. Will that addition allow Laverne Middle to get rid of any of those portables? Because I know we talked about the condition of them. Some of them's pretty bad.
It will allow us to get rid of all of them, and it will give them some growth.
Wonderful. Okay.
Now, when I say growth, I'm not talking about 15 classrooms, but probably typically 4 to 6 classrooms is the growth factor.
Now, and this may be a question for you and Dr. Sullivan, but when you look at the total number of requests that we've had now, classrooms, whether they be portables or building, are any of those requests designed to replace current bad condition portables, or are they all pretty much strictly, we need these in addition to everything we already have?
In addition to what we have,
That's what I'm afraid
typically.
of.
Yes, ma'am.
We only had one principal that stated that they had one portable that they felt like could be removed.
Needed to be condemned?
Yeah, we only had one, because that was one of the questions, are there any portables you have that we could use in another location? And we had one portable, but they were leery about moving it.
How many do we have out there that probably are close to, if not at that point where they should be condemned? Because I know we've got some that are in pretty bad shape.
We have 35 that are original portables purchased by Rutherford County Schools
Original dates us back to,
a long time ago.
10 years or more?
More than 10 years, yes, sir. They were probably 10 years old when and I've been here 12 years. They were probably 10 years old then.
okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I may. Sure. I'm just kind of thinking out of the box, and there may be rules and regulations against this, but it seems like since the classrooms are so small, that there's so much growth around here. Have we looked into maybe renting a strip mall for like let our seniors go to lunch and then go to the strip mall and have a class at one of the strip malls? I mean, is there something, surely the rent would be less than buying a portable. And I'm just thinking out loud, so
So basically leasing space.
Leasing.
As opposed to building or buying new portables. I just want to make sure I understood you.
yes.
The problem you'd have there, we'd have to have transportation to them, unless there were,
I would think if we could do maybe the seniors would already, have transportation, and they're already working, so I don't know, I'm just thinking out loud.
I don't know if that's ever been brought up.
I mean, I think it's probably been done somewhere before, but I think,
I don't know, and I'm going to say problem, I haven't looked. I don't know what is available here in Rutherford County. I know in some of the surrounding counties, there's some things like that are available. You're correct in a lot of the seniors do drive, but we still have a large number of those seniors that ride our buses.
and of course, there'd be codes, things that we'd have to retrofit for schools and stuff like that.
Yes, and then the administrators, you'd be splitting kids from, and I'm not,
Yeah, like I said, I'm just thinking out loud.
I had never thought about
That
that.
goes
so-
into it.
I know, like, for example, we went to Knoxville. I think one of the board members was with a few years back, and they were doing that. They were doing a CTE or a middle college at a reclaimed.
That's what they did. They leased or bought the mall.
Did that.
Yeah.
And if there was that would be an idea that you
But
could
it was
get.
more kids, is what I'm
Yes,
saying.
yes.
The whole school.
Right.
I certainly think that kind of out-of-the-box thinking is something that we definitely do need to be doing, though. I think it has merit that we look at those kind of things and see if there are other alternatives, because it's out of control, as we all know. It's harder and harder to convince our funding body. A lot of money.
Anyone else? Hodge, did you want to add that to our motion?
Well, I guess if the director and everybody's good with it, I can live with it. I just don't like the idea. I hear the backup plan, the backup plan's reduce classes we got, correct? I don't know if I'm really in favor of that, but I understand dollars and cents too, so.
You could always put it up there, and I mean, that's not to say that we can't bring it forward.
Yeah,
They all they can do is say no. I guess that's the old saying. Go.
basically. And then we come back and y'all
Put it
decide,
back,
what you want to take back.
I'd be more inclined to, I'd be more inclined to look at, like I said, moving the Royal Waldron up and having 2 additions, in 20 and 21, and just, if you feel more comfortable with leaving the school, the elementary down at 22, 23 as it is, I just hate to see us, I don't know how well the backup plan's gonna work, and, needless to say, I don't think we've got a plan on portables.
No, sir, and there again, we're only asking for funding for this year. We're telling them basically this is our plan for next year, which gives them a year to think about it. And this time next year, we look at it. It doesn't hurt to show them exactly what you're saying. It gives them indication of where the board is, what the board's thinking, what we're going to come to them with next year. So I don't think that's a problem at all. Moving the elementary up and leaving the elementary in the middle as far as the following year, and request Tan Oaks, Laverne Middle Edition, and Roy Waldron Edition this year. Now, I think, I'm not making your motion, but I think that's what you're proposing.
That's what I originally got at, but, and I can go either way. I mean, I just hate to see us keep getting further behind on this stuff, and you know, we're not putting an effort out there to buy portables. Right?
I'm not right now. I haven't been instructed to, so no, sir. I'm gathering information so that I can provide the information so that everybody knows what our options are, but none of us want to buy portables.
Yeah, I'm not a portable man, but this is the only other way I know to look at it.
How long has it been since we bought a portable?
Second-hand one.
I bought a second, we bought a second-hand one 2 years ago from Metro, but prior to that, it's probably been 6, 7 years. It's been a while.
I know that this board has been fighting it since before I got here, which is 5.5 years.
When the construction, to go back to Mr. Young's point, if we're building a school a year, it gives us portables to move. And he's 100% correct. The byproduct of missing this year is we don't have any portables to move. We've been fortunate. When we opened Rockville and Rock Springs, I bet we moved 12 portables last year. That's a lot of work on the maintenance staff, but we got it done. But that's where we've been able to stave off the schools running out by opening a school, which gives us 3 schools to go get portables from. This year, we don't have the schools, so we don't have any portables to go get.
I understand.
That's what's happened to us.
Well, we're at the point now where we're not going to buy any portables, and we're going to stick with that as a board, which is fine with me. Then we're going to have to build classrooms, which last a whole lot longer, with a lot less trouble than portables are. Besides the portables being, well, maybe not as pretty as you'd like. And I'm not sure if Mr. Hodge is going to make a motion or not, but and I'm kind of going back to what Mr. Young has said probably 4 times in the last month, and he's right every single time. I'll put it another way. I think we need to make an aggressive request, okay, that we make an effort and we let the county commission know what we need to at least make some sort of inroads into catching up. And if we go another year or so in this kind of frame of reference, if you will, we may not be able to catch up.
We may be in a position we can't recover. And the number that we throw at the county commission at that time will knock us all out.
Let's talk about land now. Now, we know the only reason why we're looking on the western end is because that's where the problem's coming. I mean, it's coming from the northwest end. The census put out something just the other day where it looked at Rutherford County and showed how many people were relocating, particularly to those areas. Now, we actually have one part of the county that we're losing, you know, but how many were added? And if we don't have land, we can put building programs out as far as we can. So that's my point there. And I think we've gone around with that land thing, and I think you and I discussed this, even if the board votes to, and we've got in a contract, and it comes back fine, it's gonna take a while.
Yes, sir.
The process. I mean, we still haven't negotiated with Murfreesboro City yet, or they haven't approved anything.
No, sir. It hadn't been voted on or anything yet. Even that piece, I mean, and if everything went perfect and we got it, we're probably looking at late spring, early summer before we would even have, and I think that's one reason we're making this proposal the way we are, is that asking for the elementary school now is that if everything went perfect and we got the middle school, we can't get our hands on it in time to complete a design to get the school built to open in 2021. And we can't afford to be an elementary and a middle.
Which brings up our problem, because we know we're 1,600, a little over 1,600 at Blackman Middle. We're over capacity at Rockville Middle. And that's going to present some challenges right there.
And you're correct. We're going to be looking at possibly finding a portable just to kind of get us over the hump till we can get the middle school built at Blackman Middle.
So moving a middle school up, moving them, I mean, I guess we still got we got the middle school.
We have the middle.
Online.
Yes, sir.
Moving an elementary school up wouldn't be a bad idea, really,
No,
to be
sir,
honest
it's
with
not, because I'm afraid by the time I know what's going to happen. You know the numbers at Blackman Elementary. We know the numbers at Stewart's Creek. We know the numbers. Rocky Fork Elementary is within 100 of being at capacity.
And when we think about Brown's Chapel,
we've got David Urey, where we did, if we don't get an elementary, back to Mr. Hodges' point, the elementary and the middle,
right,
for our next year request, we're going to be back in this. We're not going to get out of this boat, and the life jacket's not going to work.
May I ask one question? With all the craziness that's going on with that land out there on 96, are we still looking at other pieces of property? I'm sure the answer is yes, but.
My answer is yes, and I'm going to tell you what I'm looking for. I'm looking for 40 acres.
40
That's close to sewer. And the reason being is, I'm going to build us a middle school, and I'll worry about a high school when Mr. Spurlock retires, because I'll still be here. But he'll be gone, and we'll be looking for land for that high school. But Mr. Spurlock's problem's going to be solved. I'm going to get us a middle school on the west side of town somehow.
We need 40 acres for a middle school.
Yes, if sewer is close. If sewer is not close, we would need probably another 10 to 15 acres. But I'm using 40 as a number. And to answer to you, yes, we are looking. I have not quit. I would like to, but
Thank you.
I haven't.
Mr. Chairman, one of the things that I would like to suggest, I know Mr. Lee and his department has plenty of things to do. Perhaps we might need to look at maybe a finder's fee for a realtor, because I talked to Representative Rudd, and I said, if there's plenty of land over here, why aren't people bringing us the land? And I'm sure there is, but we're just unaware of it. And he said that's because if you don't own the land, or if you don't represent the people that own the land, that person does not get a finder's fee or a percentage of the sale.
I don't think by law, and I'll have to refer to my esteemed counselor down here, I don't think we can pay a real estate agent. We can't pay a fee
Just thinking
either.
out loud.
And I don't disagree. I learned that last year. But we can't.
it was brought up one time, and you researched it.
Yeah, and we can't.
Okay, so.
Like as many people know we're looking for land, would like to sell us some, doesn't it?
It's not from the lack of effort. We have advertised in the newspaper and everything else.
Yes, sir, and it's been discussed in these meetings for the last 7-8 months pretty much on a monthly basis.
Mr. Hodge, you want to add that over to the motion?
Yeah, might as well, see what,
Okay, who?
Second.
Let's go back. Ms. Michaels, who made the motion? Oh, okay, that's good. Who seconded it? That, okay with the change? Okay. Everybody understand that? We're going to add that. Which one we're adding?
We're moving Roy Waldron addition up to this year's request, and we're going to move the 84096 elementary up to next year's potential request.
Okay.
So can we have a reading then of how the motion's actually going to be worded? Reworded?
Yeah, we can do that. We can do that. Motion to move the Roy Waldron project up to the 2021 building program addition, and motion to move the 84096 corridor elementary school up to the fiscal year 2021-22. Did I say that correctly?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
That is correct.
Good, thank you.
Now, the 840 is at Tan Oaks.
No, ma'am.
It's 96. Okay.
84096 is what I'm calling the Blackman area.
Okay.
Okay. Everybody got that motion? Okay, we got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, Mr. Spurlock, facilities.
All right, this is Central Magnet. This is what we discussed on Tuesday night. This project will cross over to another fiscal year, this year's and next year's. Engineering and construction, along with purchasing, has a bid on the HVAC renovation for Central Magnet School on January the 7th, 2020. The only bid came in was over budget. Since that time, engineering and construction, along with Harpeth Park Engineering, has vetted the contractor and met with them to review potential cost reductions. At this time, we have revised the scope to reflect the base bid of $3,144,550. Capital Projects has $2,120,000 left allocated for this project. Since this will be phased-in project, we would like to approve the project for the funds available and include the balance in next year's capital projects to complete it. This project will not be completed until August of 2021, and this bid is allowed through Tennessee Code Annotated Sections 49-2-203A3. Motion to approve the Central Magnet HVAC renovations to Four Seasons, Inc. as presented.
so move.
Thank you. Have a second?
Second.
Motion is second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, update on textbooks.
The question the other night, just kind of give you a little bit. So we talked about our textbooks, which ones we've reviewed. I think, Ms. Moore, you had this question about the numbers, so I just want to tell you who we reviewed. So for elementary school, we reviewed McGraw, CKLA Benchmark, Learn Zillion, Expeditionary Learning, which is EL, is usually how it's referred to. We wanted to review Scholastic, but the state only approved it 4th through 5th grade. They did not review it or approve it for kindergarten through 3rd. HMH was another one, but they approved it kindergarten through 2nd and then 4th and 5th. They did not approve 3rd, which leaves us in a little bit of a bind trying to adopt the textbook. Middle school, we reviewed HMH, Wiley, Pearson, Springboard, McGraw-Hill, Great Minds, Amplify, Learn Zillion. And then high school, we looked at Pearson, College Board, McGraw-Hill, HMH, and Wiley. And so kind of where we are in this process, our high school group actually voted on what their recommendation was early this week, sorry, long week. The elementary group will probably vote next week along with the middle school group to hopefully bring you our recommendations in for the March 12th meeting, I believe, whenever the next meeting is, and we'll be able to answer any questions at that time. So that gives us still time to meet the May 15th deadline if we need to make revisions and go back to the committee.
HMH that you referenced, that's Houghton Mifflin?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sullivan. All right, revision to 2021 Rutherford County School calendar.
Yeah, this is the revisions of the 2021 Rutherford County School calendar. Just to give everyone a point of reference, Rutherford County, like many of our districts, most of our districts around, build in a half an hour on our daily schedule. According to state law, K through 1 through 12, in order to be a full day of instruction, it's 6.5 hours. We build in another half hour, and we take those in stockpile days. We can only stockpile 13. Currently, we use 11 of those stockpile days for inclement weather. This gives us 2 more left. We use one in another part of our calendar, but what we would like to do is take this other day, add it in as an in-service day, another teacher in-service day, which will be a full day of in-service. What the teachers must get, at the beginning of the year, we give teachers 3 days of in-service. They get 3 days, and the additional 2 days they get on their own. With us adding this in-service day on October the 20th, a full day of in-service, this would reduce the number of in-service days that the teacher would have to get on their own to 1 day. We feel like this gives them an opportunity to actually get and dig into some of the things that they want to be doing. And that, do I have that date correct on that? Is it October the 20th? Okay, make sure, check me on that. I could be wrong.
Yeah, that's
Is that right, Ms. Lehman?
correct.
Okay, all right. So what we would like to do is use that day in that matter. So a motion to approve the revision to the 2020-21 calendar as presented.
Does this do away with a half day?
It does away with one. Now, what we would like to do in 2022 is do away with both and use those as complete full days of in-service PLCing. Yeah.
And that is something that we hear from our teachers. We know that our teachers work extremely hard and put a ton of hours in outside of school. So by moving those 2 days, that would allow us to build their other 12 in-service days into our actual calendar, so they would not then be required to get anything outside of their calendar, which is really appreciative of the work that they do.
Absolutely.
Just throwing it out there, generally speaking, parents hate half days.
Absolutely.
Let's move along.
That was one other thing, too.
And one other thing we connected with that October 20th day, the reason we chose that is the elementary school parent-teacher conference day. And so that way, if our teachers a lot of times have a full day of teaching and then they have parent-teacher conferences, elementary is usually our most attended day. So this way our teachers could have their in-service day and then move into their parent-teacher conference.
May I ask, so our teachers are favorable to this move?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
And parents really like it.
Absolutely.
Biggest complaint I have is on half days. So, all right, do we have a motion?
Move to approve, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Quickest motion we've ever made, I believe. Financial matters.
All right, this was the request to increase the adult meal price from $3.50 to $3.80, effective immediately. As Dr. Sullivan talked, or maybe it was Mr. Beaudry said the other night, the K-5, the meals are $2.75 and for students, and the 612 is $3 for students. What we're asking is to increase this. This was one of the findings by the state nutrition, that we raise this price up immediately. We were looking at perhaps maybe doing this, stagger this over a couple of years. However, we must do this. Motion to approve the increase the price of the adult meal in Rutherford County cafeterias for the adults from $3.50 to $3.80, effective immediately, in order to be in compliance with federal food and nutrition service guidance.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Second? Thank you. Any questions?
I just asked, it doesn't pertain to the motion, but are we having any more luck getting those parents with reduced meals to sign up?
Are we having any what now?
More luck? Are we having more
You know, we are looking at different things, you know, and trying to, and there's probably something we'll start doing more at the beginning of the year. And if you look at this, you would think because we have more elementary schools, that's where the charges are coming from. It's not. You know, it's going to your secondaries, primarily some high schools. Am I correct in that, Mr. Bowden? And I think what we had the other night did not reflect a little over $9,000 that was an anonymous donor paid off Oakland Middle Schools.
Correct, sir. $9,200 from an anonymous donor, a parent, that came in and paid off that balance, the balance. So what I have in your packets, you know, it's listed by school what the balance was as of last week. It was right, I had that run right before the parent came in and did an anonymous donation.
And if we recall, I think back at the end of the first semester, someone came in and paid off a substantial amount in some schools at the northern end of the county. Wasn't that correct?
Yes, sir. That was the there was some builders and some other businesses that along with some individuals that came in and were paying off this during the fall and beginning of the year. So
yet it still grew back in a few months.
We are back higher now than at before the donation.
Right. So I think perhaps, I mean, and guys, we've hit this thing as hard as we could, and I don't know. I mean, I'm open for suggestions. I think Mr. Boulder, you'd be open for some suggestions also, right?
Very much. Eric Smith, our nutrition director, he's working with, as you know, with the principals, trying to find the best practice to try to pull this down. We're doing what we can, but you know, we're not. It goes back to if the child doesn't have money, we don't want a teacher to have a child that hasn't been eaten.
Absolutely.
In that day. And
I will say it does not reflect not necessarily, I know we have one school, but it does not reflect the high percentage of free and reduced lunch. We have some on there that would be considered in the middle or very low.
That's right.
That have high debt. So I don't know how that works out. And like you said, we don't deny any child a lunch or a meal. We wouldn't want to. But it's not, we don't see a correlation between economically disadvantaged and high debt on lunch charges.
Looking at the trend, you would think that in some of the more economically disadvantaged areas, you would see it the highest, but it is kind of surprising when you see some of the schools that have a higher balance in some of the areas of the county.
They charge breakfast as well as lunch?
High school, yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Oh, yes.
So, we've got how many schools? 49?
Yes, sir.
So we've got 49 schools that have to, at least for a while, handle their own problem, which I understand. I guess that's correct. So what does a school do at the first week of school, and they've had $100 worth of lunches and breakfast, whatever, charge? What do they do? And who does it? It must vary from school to school.
Yes, sir. The balance varies from school to school. And is your question at the end of the year?
Let's just go with the first week.
Yes, sir.
Do they do anything after a week? Or?
Most of the time, the cafeteria managers are making phone calls.
Okay.
And then once those don't work, they send letters home, typically. And then the teachers will get involved when it comes time for report cards, and then it just kind of goes from there.
And typically what we'd also do is administration gets involved too. They disperse that out and send it to. So they're all involved in it. I mean, from administration to the cafeteria manager, and
that's a lot of extra work, and a lot of stuff, and a lot of different
work.
people.
That's right. But the concern is that this eats up some revenue for us.
We've actually had requests for additional money for postage because, once again, the schools are sending out letters to parents.
Additional postage, is that what you said?
Postage.
Okay.
Yes, postage, to reach out to the parents. Because, of course, they're not going to talk with the child, they send it to the parent.
Well, I guess we've probably gone about it. I don't know where else to go with this. We absolutely, and everybody in this room knows this, and he just said it. We do not want a hungry child.
No.
Hungry child will not learn. They just won't. Or it certainly hampers them a good deal. So we're going to feed them. Somebody's going to feed them, anonymous donor or not.
Okay, we got a motion to raise the adult meal price and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Let me come back to that just a minute, and I'm like Ms. Sharp here, I'm just throwing this out there, but would it hurt us to at least investigate a county-wide policy as to how to handle this, or does that make any sense? I'm talking about every school doing the same things in the same order.
I think there's a lot of merit there to being consistent across the district, yes, absolutely.
I'd like to kind of know what the principals and cafeteria managers and others might have to say about this. It's not their fault. I don't think, evidently we don't have a policy as to how to handle it. We allow every school to have their own policy.
As far as collections are concerned,
Right.
and I reached out to Eric to ask for some of the best practices. But you're right, we've been trying to put together something as a best practice, that they've seen as effective.
And in your opinion, I think I kind of got this from what you said a minute ago. This is not something that somebody looks up on April 15th and says, oh my goodness, we've got so much money. An attempt has already been made. Many attempts have already been made to collect.
Yes.
Everybody on the staff is nodding yes. So I guess the yes must be the answer. But for whatever reason, we don't get all of it. Once it's charged, it's, I'm afraid, hard to get in it.
That's,
yes.
like I said, yes. I mean, some are doing better
Okay.
some are collecting better than others, but I'm not saying they're not doing the effort. They're trying.
Okay.
Just a parting shot, it's not unique to us. It's not unique to Tennessee. You can find many articles on it, so it's a nationwide thing.
Okay, resolution to request unclaimed property.
All right, this is Mr. Beaudry. He looked at the unclaimed property, and he found that we actually, I think it's broken down by school, accumulate out there $3,908.56 in unclaimed property that was identified through this search. Motion to approve the resolution to formally request unclaimed property due to Rutherford County school system and to apply the funds to the current balance of the outstanding student meal debt for each of the individual schools identified. Furthermore, the amount due on the list of unclaimed property that is identified as Rutherford County Board of Education will be divided equally between the credit meal balances of the two county alternative schools.
Okay, we have a motion.
I'll move.
Thank you. Second? Thank you. Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Tennessee Department of Education Governor's Civic Seal Grant.
Now, this was Tennessee Governor Bill Lee and Education Commissioner Penny Schwinn recently awarded 21 Governor Civic Seal mini grants promoting lifelong civic engagement in schools and districts across the state. The grants will be used for the 2020-21 school year to fund programs that include the following: promote lifelong civic engagement by providing access to high-quality, standards-based civic resources. Smyrna High School was awarded one of these grants for an amount of $10,000. Motion to approve the grant contract from the Governor's Civic Seal mini grant that was recently awarded to Smyrna High School.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Have a second? Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Chairman or Mr. Director, maybe you can answer, I don't know. And this is wonderful that this happened. Do we know how much they awarded in total across the state and how they came up with the decisions as to what schools got the awards?
You know what? I don't know what the amount was. I want to say in the hundreds, maybe 150,000 or something total wide. It was something of that nature. Yeah, okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay, John Coleman Annex.
All right, as we talked about on Tuesday night, we looking at moving the volunteer pre-K from Rock Springs, Cedar Grove, David Urey, Laverne Primary, Smyrna Elementary, Smyrna Primary, Rocky Fork Elementary, Stewartsboro, to the John Coleman Annex for the start of the 2020-21 school year. This could impact maybe close to 200 kids. This would be, like I said, at John Coleman. We talked about what kind of, for some of the schools, there's 2 rooms could be, made available. Some 1, so it's all over the board there, and that's just projecting that the same amount of pre-K would be in next year's cohort. So we don't really know that until they come or until they enroll. So what we're asking is motion to change the John Coleman Annex to a voluntary pre-K school starting in 2020-2021. The voluntary pre-K students from Cedar Grove, David Urey, Laverne Primary, Rock Springs Elementary, Smyrna Elementary, Smyrna Primary, Rocky Fork Elementary, Stewartsboro Elementary would be moved to John Coleman Annex for that beginning of next school year.
So moved.
Second.
All right.
Mr. Chairman, I do have something I'd like to discuss here.
Okay.
I've had some constituents to ask me about, there's some concerns here about transportation. There's a couple of these schools especially might be in an area where the parents don't have transportation to drive or take their kids to school. They say they've even had parents show up at schools riding bicycles just to get the kids to school. So I would like for us to consider looking at transportation. If there's some way we could run a shuttle bus from some of these schools over to John Coleman, if we could look at that from a Title I fund.
Title I, what's the alignment on our plan? We'd have to go back and look at that. We can look at it. We got 2 things we'll look at, Mr. Young. We can look at if this would align with our Title I our goals and our E-plan. Also, I also mentioned this, we also could, of course, depending on which one, we could just leave that particular school or schools alone.
The other part of it is voluntary pre-K, and so, of course, right now, you're exactly right. We have students and parents who have that issue with transportation. We currently have a waiting list at some of our schools. We actually applied for a 16th site last year, and we did not get that 16th site because it's all paid for out of a state funding mechanism. So that's something that we can look at, but just know with transportation, we're probably going to have a larger waiting list and less people that may potentially be able to get in.
But yeah, I just would like for us to look into that and to see what we can do to help out that situation.
Anyone else? Okay, got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. All right, we're ready for the famous insurance update here.
Mr. Beaudry gave you copies of today's financials, and we did review the 6 bids, and it was narrowed down to 2, which was Ascension, St. Thomas, and Vanderbilt. The votes were 8 for St. Thomas, 4 for Vanderbilt, and so with that $3 million bid cost, they looked at items such as staffing, technology, operation, administration, supplies, and overhead. So what happens next after our group made that recommendation? It now goes to purchasing, then budgeting, and then it goes to the full commission as the final review.
Okay, anybody have any questions? Dr. Anthony? All right, thank you. Director's update.
Yeah, one thing I was appreciate being invited to go down to the state FFA legislative breakfast this morning. We got to hear governor, lieutenant governor, and the Speaker of the House. A lot of great leadership across the state of Tennessee, but more in particular the Rutherford County FFA programs do a lot of great things. They understand that it's not just digging a hole, putting in a seed and covering it up. It takes more than that, and I appreciate all that they do. Second thing, as we looked at the initiative that the governor's bringing forward with early literacy, particularly in the pre-K to second grade, I started looking at it, and one of the things that they talk about, and we know this, in third grade, the state of Tennessee, only about a little bit over a third of our third graders read on grade level. Now, I recall, if we go back in 2016, we had an initiative by a commissioner of education in the state of Tennessee called Read to Be Ready. And that initiative was a grant of about $9 million was invested. And in that grant, we started as Rutherford County, I think we started mainly in kindergarten that we started. And it was primarily putting it into instructional reading coaches, if I'm not mistaken. And you can correct me, any of you elementary people over there. And during that time, obviously, 2016 to 2020, we had not fully implemented Read to Be Ready across grades K, 1, 2, and 3, or K, 1, 2. Am I correct on that? Okay, so really, what they were using as far as an assessment of whether it's working or not was not complete data. Now, I'm not saying that what we were doing was the right way. In fact, if you look at historically across the United States, since the 60s, we have dropped across the United States in the number of third graders reading on grade level. But what the state wants to do now is to introduce what's called the science of reading. And I'm not going to bore you with it, but it gets in phonemic awareness, phonics, fluency, vocabulary, where we end up being able to comprehend what we're reading. This is to a tune of about $11.25 million for a year for the next 4 years. So that's an investment of $45 million. It will require our teachers to go back and get actually trained and get us those that work with the reading, and anyone that works with teaching reading, go back and get trained on this process. The cost will be picked up by the State Department in the form of a stipend for those that are just teachers only, not administrators. And then there is another process where they actually want to put it into the programs of the EPPs that provide our teachers. Now, all this, when you look at it, it sounds good. One of the things that was asked in one of the subcommittees to Commissioner Swin, who currently in the state of Tennessee uses it? And she referenced, she didn't call them by name, but she said there were some districts that are currently using it, the science of reading, but I never heard any names of the district.
Did she say Trousdale?
Ma'am?
Did she say Trousdale?
I don't know. She may have. I didn't hear anything. Maybe I missed that part.
I'll go back and listen to it.
Okay, yeah. And the next thing she referenced was the NAEP scores, and I think when you start doing the NAEP and you're comparing that to the state assessments, I think it's like comparing apples to oranges. Now, I'm not saying what we're currently doing is the right thing, and I do have concerns. I think we all, as Rutherford County, we did slip a little bit. We're like 40% of our third graders. We're a little bit above the state. No one other than a few districts are really knocking it out of the park. Okay, I mean, however, I'm not sure, and I think this was brought up, I'm not sure that the best way to do this is pilot it somewhere. I mean, if we're going, before we go head over with 11.25 million, now, of course, I'm going to make these decisions, so it don't matter what I think, but I'm just giving you some updates. Perhaps maybe we should pilot in a few districts to see how effective it is before we go and invest in that. And I say that for a couple of reasons, because if you'll recall, Commissioner, your friend, I can't remember her name, McQueen, she had a goal that by 2025, 75% of all third graders in the state of Tennessee will read on grade level. We're nowhere near that now. That was a great goal. Maybe it was, you got to have those goals. As Lou Holtz said, you have to have those attainable goals and those ones you reach for. So maybe that was a good goal, but if we're investing this money, I think we may want to do it. I want to pump the brakes a little bit and see if we can do something that can show that we're actually having this impact. And that's my 2 cents.
I got a question. How'd we come out with IDB board?
Yes, I'm sorry that I didn't tell you that. Mr. Boulder and I attended the IDB board, and I want to say hats off to Mr. Bouldery, the lady that was from Younger, what was the name of the
Younger and Associates, who
Younger
does
and
the cost
Associates.
benefit analysis.
She went through and she gave the cost analysis, and basically it was all revenue. And Mr. Bouldery actually had her agree with him on a phone conference call. However, about an hour and 30 minutes later, we left there with the same results we had when we got in there. They were not going to go for it. Am I correct on that, Mr. Bouldery?
Perfect analysis of what happened. Yes, sir.
We did have, I will say this, we did have a commissioner that spoke on our behalf, and Mr. Brodery handled himself well. And we tried, one of the things Mr. Brodery pointed out is when the TASER analysis of it says instead of just including revenue generated by the abatement through sales tax, you should also include the infrastructure, which includes schools and things of that nature. We got into the discussion of the industries that are coming here, are they actually living here? And I think we use the ratio that's been used quite often is that for every X amount of industries come, it equates to 1.5 student in their schools. They asked us, do you have the data to show it? And I said, no, but do you have the data to show that we don't? Right? And they didn't have that data either. So we tried, and it's not over with. I think we're going to the steering committee. I'm not real optimistic, but we'll do what we can do.
Thank you, sir. Okay, Tennessee Legislative Network. Ms. Johnson.
Nothing this evening.
You? Federal? Ms. Sharp?
Mr. Chairman, there's not much. I know Secretary DeVos was here, and she toured some of the TCAT facilities with the governor, as well as she was here to speak at the Christian Broadcast Convention at the hotel. And there was some discussion, of course, again, about the Freedom Scholarships, which we've discussed here previously. There was some discussion about our children having freedom to pray in the schools. So not a whole lot different than what we've already discussed.
Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you.
General discussion.
I've
anything?
I've got the civics information for you. So civics information, it was $220,000 that was allocated for the 2021 school year. Their schools will use it for civic engagement, PD, and then involvement with constituents. School applications, really, Smyrna High School was one of 6 that actually received that full amount of $10,000. That was the highest level schools could receive. They did. They applied in highlighting their civics programs they already have. So.
I'm a modern, Mr. Lee.
Are we going into general discussion now? General discussion?
Where'd they come from?
These came from your students at John Coleman. We had a reception this week, breakfast, and so I took the liberty of picking some up for y'all. Some of the students had written little notes for the school board members on these little snowflakes. So these came from the John Coleman students. They also had, at the reception, they had their ambassador team there. It's probably about 10 to 12 fifth graders, and they were so poised, so hospitable, and some of them sat with a table throughout the crowd, and I'm just really impressed. They were so wonderful. There was one young man there that was a part of the Young Marines group, which I'd never heard of that outfit, but he was very poised, spoke well, stood at attention. I mean, he was already, you know, probably ranked. But just wanted to shout out to John Coleman and our people out there. It was a great reception, and the kids were fantastic.
Glad you shared that. I thought maybe the teachers were wanting a snow day. Okay, anything else?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I got one thing. One thing I'd like to ask the director to look into would be our behavior students. I know we've had a lot of discussions here lately about how those numbers keep increasing. I'd like to see us maybe incorporate a cross-functional team made up of teachers and people here at the central office, and let's dig into that a little bit and see what we can maybe do to improve that.
Yeah, one of the things we've got an initial meeting just to get the scope of it. We've got the principals that are impacted, some special people here, behavior specialists here, along with Ms. Kozabowski. And once we get the scope of everything, then that's when we'll break out into we'll develop a plan to better address that. Okay. And just for those that may not know what we're talking about the special needs behavior impacted students and work on that. And it's great in our elementary grades.
And then maybe once we get this data or get the information together, we can invite some of our state representatives and go tour some of the schools and see what our teachers are having to deal with on a day-to-day basis. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, I have already visited with Charlie Baum, Representative Rudd, and I've sent information to Michael Sparks, Representative Sparks, and I actually bought out of my pocket those books that we've been talking about, because that really gives them a good kind of really what's going on when push comes to shove, what the school board and the alternative school and the back to the school and things like that. So that's been a lot of discussion in the safety subcommittee. I think we have one teacher here that's in the subcommittee, but the last couple of months we have not met because Mr. Krim has been involved with some other drills and emergency plans. But I think Mr. Young is on to something that we do need to address this and protect our teachers. There is some pending legislation right now for that.
Okay, good. Anyone else? Not, we're adjourned.